I wonder what's happened. Oh. 42nd of July, must be more than 40. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Djuma Game Reserve. Welcome to Wild Earth, and welcome to what is for us a Monday morning. Yeah, I think so. Monday morning here in South Africa, in the Greater Kruger National Park. We had a very nice sunset. We had some very nice light this morning, but there's some cloud coming in very, very fast. And we have an added technical issue we have to deal with this morning. So you're going to just have to be patient with us while we do that during the drive. Otherwise we can't go very far. We need to go back to camp. Something's just happened to some equipment. Literally a minute before we went live. And it means we have to go and fetch some batteries back at camp and take them out to one of our masts in the middle of the bush and swap some batteries around to get power on that mast again. This is something that tends to happen when we get too much overcast weather and solar panels don't charge things up properly. And with only the three of us, well, it's kind of difficult to do. But we're going to do that now. It's not going to take too long, but just bear with us while we do that. Other than that, beautiful flowers that we've got in front of the car. There's the dwarf corals. Erythrina. So we'll start with going to collect two very big heavy batteries at camp. Jigger. Just here. This up Zoe's Road near Impala Plains. Well, for us, as I say, Monday morning, for those of you, hope you've had a good weekend, who are still enjoying your weekend. Some of you are already halfway through Monday, I guess. Australia, New Zealand. Tom. Tom is in, I believe, sunny Seattle. I don't know, you got sunshine in Seattle, Tom? I thought it was rain. And rain. And if you needed it, sometimes it rains. Only kidding. Nice to hear from you, Tom. I remember a lion named Mr. T from a few years ago. I do, Tom. He was one of the Mapokos. He was the remaining Mapoko brother after the Majinga line came up to Djuma. They came from the east, probably from somewhere in Kruger, I think. Fought with the two Mapokos. The two Mapokos killed one of the 5 Majinga lines of victory. And then they retaliated and killed Mr. T's brother, Kinky Tail. Like in the movies when they cut the wire at 2 seconds. Hello everybody, welcome back. Well, here we are, up near Zoe's Road. Cloud hasn't moved in as much as I thought it would, but there's still a stretch of a bank of cloud in the south, southeast. And, you know, see if we can make the most of this morning. Now, news just in, is that somebody has been to both hyena dens that we have. The one up on Cheetah Cut Line, which I didn't see active, and the hyena den that we've been at the last 2 days. And we found that, or what was found is that there's no activity there at either one, which means the dens have moved. And since we are up here on Zoe's Road, I think it is time to check this den. Rebecca's Road, Zoe's. I suppose we should have checked in Impala Plains. We can come back this way. And it's a little chilly, there's a bit of a cool wind blowing, so I'm hoping that hyena might be a little need of sunshine. There's a little bit of sun coming through. Maybe they're still outside. If they're here, if they have moved here. I wonder if they haven't moved to a den where we were following those two today morning. Maybe that's why we couldn't find them again, because maybe they have a den inside there, and maybe that's where the den was active at the time of the accident with Karula's cub. Well, not really an accident, misfortune of Karula's cub being killed. Maybe I've got a good imagination, but it's starting to sound, since we were following them, it was the same two hyenas, since we were following them in that exact area yesterday, I've suddenly had this thought, maybe they were going home. They weren't going to find a kill. Maybe they were just wandering home, and home is that area there. Now that they've moved again. Beautiful sky, beautiful bushveld. It's almost like a fisheye, it's a very wide angle. name I haven't heard in a while. Good morning. Oh, Kashmira. Hey. I've got a face full of golden orb. There she is. Actually, that's a garden orb, not a golden orb. Sorry, spider, I didn't even see you. I was looking at Kashmira. Always distracted by women. Kashmira was asking, when is the flower lion eyes? When does that bloom? It was blooming for most of summer. They were always on the roadside. We also know them as the roadside pimpernel, on the edges of the roads. I guess the seed germinates better in places like that. Somehow, maybe the way the seed washes down the roads. It might, after this little bit of rain, might get to see some of them here coming out again. But it might take a day. Here's a hyena. So I'm thinking that they're back at this den. Look at that. Hello, hyena. And we go see if you're all at the den. There's another hyena at the den. So you can run, but you can't hide. A lot of grass in front of the den this time around. I guess since they haven't been here for a while. Have they been here at all? When Peter and Hayden were here, weren't they here?
Yeah.
So they've come back to this den now. There I can see a little one, but now that one is bigger than the little black one we saw. And then the other hyena is approaching, and this one at the den starts growling. And the little one is also behaving like a... Let me just tell people. Mithia moved to Zoe's Road. I'm at the den now, active. So far only one. I'll let you know if I've only just arrived. The one off Zoe's, Rebecca's. Hard to see what's going on, but I think over the next few days, since they've probably only been here about a day, I'm guessing that over the next few days this grass will get trampled and it'll be flattened a little bit. So now this is one of the two I think that Tara saw. And I think the two that we saw the other night are two new ones. Because this one is bigger and bolder. Just move a little forward, little one, just into that little gap of grass. Can't really move for a better view. Every baby needs its ears cleaned. Right, that's right. We were having signal problems. I was talking about Mr. T for Tom in Seattle. Tom, Mr. T, and his brother. His brother's name was Kinky Tail. The last time I saw the two of them, we were having a get together. I suppose party. It wasn't quite. It was a get together to say farewell to a couple of guys from Arathusa. We were on Arathusa airstrip one night. We had a little bit of a fire going on the bottom end of the airstrip. In fact, exactly where we crossed the airstrip yesterday with that elephant is where we used to have meetings. And Andre was the guard that was leaving, and there were guys from all the other lodges with wives and girlfriends, and girls with husbands and boyfriends and girlfriends. They were lion calling, and they are calling from two different directions. And I remember leaving the group of people and going to see if I could find them. Hang on, I'm being called. Don't go anywhere, I'll get back to that story. Go ahead. So far I can just see one Mafazo, one Mampimpan, and then there's another one adult. So far, I don't know who's around the bend, around the other side of the termite mound. Anyways, I've got to where that buffalo pan is, where that big tall deck is, and it was a full moon, funnily enough. So I didn't even have to use lights. I had my lights off. I was sitting in my landy, and I had one of the big boys coming from the southern end of the airstrip and one of them coming from that central road, and the two of them met up almost exactly where I was, and the two of them were roaring next to my Land Rover, and it was such an incredible experience because even the rivets that were loose were rattling. And I think it was a day or two later that the Majingu lions moved into the area, and then within a day of those 5 male lion calling, the two Mapokos, Kinky Tail and Mr. T, must have heard them and objected to the presence of those young upstarts. And so 2 took on 5, had a big fight. I think this was up at Nkoro, and killed one of the newcomers. And the next day, the 4 remaining brothers of the newcomers, the Majingu lions, chased Mr. T and Kinky Tail, and they caught up with them and they killed Kinky Tail. And Mr. T, so called because he had like a dark Mohican hairstyle for a mane. He got injured and he raced back south to go and find the 4 brothers that had moved down on Mala Mala. And that was the last I heard of him, actually. I think he passed away, if I'm not mistaken. There are some viewers who might know. Sil, Liz, Mike Moss also might know something if he went down that way towards Lion Sands. What was that?
That felt like an elephant.
So I thought maybe an elephant, but I also thought maybe a human. And have a look. I don't know if the other entrance on the eastern side is still open to the den. We're going to have a look at that. See, now this is the old entrance here. You can hardly see it, it's completely overgrown. Thanks for messages, tweets that are coming in that are saying that people are thinking this little cub is the cub that Tara named Ntombela. I think so too. Get a beautiful orb web in the sunlight. Morning, Kingfisher. That is a lucky spider. She's in the middle. If you can see all those little spiders, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, at least 8, 9, all above the top of the web there. Those are all males courting this one female. I guess there's quite a lot of competition. I don't think I've ever seen that many males on a golden orb's web. She's still going to get somewhat bigger than she is. That is quite incredible. Some of them will be taken by wasps. Some of them will get chased. Go text, morning. Yeah, fine, and you? Yeah, firm. 1 out of 5. Yeah, I'm going to be leaving shortly. Now, if we can go from the golden orb to this spider web over here, known as the garden orb. She doesn't have gold silk, she has white silk. Maybe now the sun's going, it's not so great, not so easy to see. There we go. But what's amazing about the garden orb is a very distinctive zigzag pattern to the silk. Known as a stabilimentum. And there's a debate as to the function of the stabilimentum. To some degree it hides the spider. There's a type of garden orb, a little different to this one, a little bit more silver. This is yellow and black and grey. There's one that's got more of a silver abdomen that makes an X, stabilimentum in the shape of an X. If you look at it, when it blurs and it just blends in with the grasses, it's a visual stimulus, believed to be a visual deterrent to birds or things that are too large that might fly into the web. Also, it's believed that it forms a background with which the spider can hide itself. A little bit of camouflage. A lot of baboon's tails here. All of the leaves going a bit yellow. I guess they're going to be getting new leaves soon. They are getting new leaves already. I can see some of the new leaves coming through. It'll be a while before. Well, it was flowering. We saw some flowers a little while ago. We're going to have to come back here one day, another day. With those two sleeping there behind the grasses. Not such a great view. Come on guys, stop talking, I want to talk. I'm leaving PC Kaya open lock. And did you say this Kankan on quarantine? Okay, thanks. Oh, I heard well. Time for a cat. One of those cats. One of those little elusive spotted cats. Well, that elephant sounded like it could have come from Philemon's Dip. If it was elephant. Where they can't make up its mind. think that was fork-tailed drongo mimicking a chagra. Fork-tailed drongos are little flycatchers that are clowns and mimics and ventriloquists, and they've got a sense of humour. And one of their trademarks is mimicking other birds, but especially birds who are liable to be competition to flycatchers and other insect-eating birds. And they'll mimic small owls, not young owls, but smaller owlets. Some of the smaller owls that are sometimes even diurnal owls that also hunt insects and small prey. And what it does is, I guess, it chases other small insect eaters. Well, not chases, but it makes them wary about hunting in that area because they think that it's a chagro, think that it's an owl or a larger bird, so they move along elsewhere, and it gives the drongo a little bit extra space for itself. Lessens the competition. Mimicry takes many forms. Morning, Marco. Quite a large, or rather extensive question, but all pointing to the same thing, really. I suppose Marco in New Jersey is asking if I have any, in the years of tracking cats and living with cats, are there any particular cats that stand out in my mind, that are particular cats, memorable cats? There are, I think, from the first family of cats that I ever tracked as a guide, when I first became a guide. Funny enough, I was turn that down, distracted. I was at Ulusaba, funny enough. It was a much smaller place than it is now. It was only a 4-bedroom, 8-person lodge, and it was just me, just one guide, and I was tracking. I had a wonderful old tracker. My name was Masinga, quite a famous old man, and we were tracking these 6 cats. Well, 8. There were 3 cubs each of 2 lionesses, so there were 8 of them in total. and we hadn't tracked yet together. We'd worked together a bit, but it was the first time we actually got out of the vehicle and went tracking line, left the guest in the vehicle, and I guess he wanted to find out how much I knew and how trustworthy I was before we went tracking together. And the very first time we bumped into the lion, and these were two lionesses that with their cubs, they were not too happy times about being followed on foot. And we found them, and they got up, and as they got up, because they were all lying down, but as the two lionesses got up, he grabbed me by the collar and he held me, and I said, "What you doing?" He says, "I just want to make sure you're not going to run away," because he didn't know how I was going to react to these lions standing up. And of course the last thing you do when you're in that situation is turn tail and run away, because it's just an invitation to a cat to follow you. Elephant, but it had rain on it. So that was, I suppose, since it was my very first tracking experience of bumping into lion with a tracker, it was memorable. We had a lion in that part of the Sabi Sand again when it was about 15 years later. No, not that many. 10 years later, I was back in that area in the Sabi Sand, and we had a big lion by the name of Jonathan, big male lion. He was the local big boy of those prides, and used to enjoy tracking him. But there was also a leopard at the same time, a massive leopard, probably one of the biggest leopards I've known. Kind of another Mvula, as it were. I think he might have even been bigger. His name was Mbombi, and if you found his tracks on the road, you could probably follow them for up to 10 kilometers. I mean, he would walk. That leopard would cover ground like no other leopard I knew. And he was also a famous warthog hunter. So many times did we find him sitting on a termite mound waiting for the warthogs to become so intimidated and so stressed out that they would rush out of the burrow in the hopes of getting away, only of course to be caught, one of them to be caught by him, because he could do that. Sometimes he would sit for hours. His patience would invariably be rewarded, and I think his demise was that he got a little bit old. I mean, he was about 10 or 11 when I knew him, and I believe a few years later, I guess he was getting a bit older and slower and took on a warthog a little bit too big, and he was taken by the warthog. Well, he was killed in the fight with the warthog. Warthog have formidable weapons, not so much the tusks that we see on the warthog, but the lower tusks, the lower jaw that sit underneath the upper tusk. They're self-sharpening little stilettos. I wonder if anybody's done Rebecca's Road. Doesn't look like it. Maybe we'll do that. Or elephant, of course it did. Been elephant sound, but I haven't seen any fresh enough tracks to get excited. There was, it sounded like elephant coming from this area when we were with the hyena. The years I spent in Sulu Game Reserve, there were several lion prides that I got to know there. I was also lucky to be able to go out with a local lion researcher, a chap from Sweden, Goran, who was doing his PhD on lion. And sometimes if I didn't have guests, if I had some time off, instead of going to the coast to go diving, I used to spend time with Goran. And some of the areas that I couldn't get to from camp to see some of the other lion prides that I didn't know about, he had a fantastic database of all the lion, several collared individuals, and I can remember driving through the pitch black nights in the Sulu with him wearing a night vision. I couldn't see a thing. I have to tell you, it's quite daunting sometimes. Well, all the time. Sitting in the passenger seat of a Land Rover, I wouldn't say hurtling through the bush, but driving through the bush in the pitch dark, and he had infrared goggles with infrared lights on his vehicle so he could see where he was driving. That's exciting. And there were several groups of lions, several prides that I got to know very well, but one pride in particular, one of the lionesses was very pale. She wasn't a white lioness, but she was just much paler, whitey. Not paler than the others. And her sisters that spent time in camp, and I used to track them a lot. They got quite used to seeing me on foot, never got any trouble out of them, never had them charge me or get aggressive with me. At home, there's a leopard at home that I'm fond of. Comes past the house every now and then. Occasionally seen him on kills at home. But as for tracking, I think the best lioness, the best cat that I've ever had that was notorious when it came to tracking was a lioness that we called Scar, in an area that is now known as Lion Sands in the southern part of the Sabi Sands. And she had been caught in a snare as a very young lion, well, as a sub-adult, I think, when young in her years. And she was found emaciated, almost close to death, having had the snare cut really deep into her neck. And the snare was before my time that the snare was cut off. When I met her, the snare had already hit, she had already healed very well, and there was a black scar that looked like a collar, looked like a necklace, where the skin and the hair had grown back. We called her Scar, and she had given birth to some cubs, and I got to know her cubs when they were only a few months old, and I watched. Well, there were only 2 left when I got there, because I think her sister killed one of them. There were 3 boys, and the 2 boys that remained became young sub-adult males by the time I left there. But it was interesting tracking her, because after this ordeal with the snare and the darting and the fixing, she became very wary of vehicles and humans. In fact, she hated them, and it became almost like a drug to track her and to be what we call revved by her, because if you could get close enough to her, she would hide in thick bush, and you would think that she had this behavior that as you tracked her, she would hear you coming, get up and move with the cubs. So you would always see where she had been lying down. Sometimes the grass was still springing up from where they had laid down, so that she just kept that little bit ahead of you all the time. So she'd run ahead and lie down under a bush and hope that you'd go away. And if you continued to track her, it would reach a point where at one point she would get up and just rush at you, just a few feet, not even that close, but she would just get up out of the bush and go, just a spitting fury. And that was enough. You'd stop and then go and fetch the vehicle and then bring the vehicle into where you had found her. You couldn't go tracking line in a vehicle off-road. You had to be on foot. So it was necessary to park the vehicle and go off tracking. And as the boys started getting a little bit older, as they got to know the vehicles themselves, they became very calm with the vehicles, and it was quite miraculous how they calmed her down, so that by the time they were about 6 months old, she was losing that dislike of vehicles. She was becoming far more comfortable with them, to the point where eventually she didn't really mind at all. So she would probably stand out as probably one of the best cats for tracking that I remember from my younger years as a ranger down south in the Sabi Sands. In the Okavango Delta, it was always fun to wake up in the morning and have cat tracks on the island. I was running a camp that was on its own island. The island was just a little bit bigger, longer, and a lot wider than just the single airstrip that was on it. We only had walks and boat safaris and what I called makoro dugouts. The only thing with a wheel on the island was a wheelbarrow that we could hardly even use because of the soft sands and nature of the islands in the Okavango. But it was mostly to help carry supplies from the aeroplane to the camp when the supply plane landed. So you could either get to the island with a plane or a boat. It's an island in like a swampland, surrounded by marsh and papyrus-lined channels, deep in the heart of the Okavango Delta. I mean, there's ever going to be a regret in my life is that I didn't stay there longer, that I was at a time when I was compelled to try and accomplish as much as I could in as short amount of time as possible. And now, well, there's the other cat that I forgot to mention that has become a very big part of my life in the last 6 years of my life. And for a while I thought that I wouldn't see her again, and that of course is Karula. And finding her tracks, because here driving around Djuma there's only likely to be one leopardess, one set of female tracks. When we see it, we pretty much know that it is her. And it's not impossible that there are others, but generally speaking, if they're going to be cat tracks, it's going to be Karulas. Her boys are already bigger than her, so we know that when we see their tracks, it's not her. And I suppose the years that have gone past of tracking Karula, trying to. Very special cat. wonder what we should do from here. I'm hoping that some flowers will come out after this rain. I'm pretty sure there are one or two things that I can think of that haven't flowered yet this season, and some that once the rains have come will open up again. Some devil's thorn here coming back into flower. They don't really go out of flower. Devil's thorn seems to always have a little pink pockets. That's quite fresh, really done. Bit of a cold wind blowing when we're facing south. There's a little bee eater here. Actually, we've seen a few of them here before. A little family. Interesting to find where they nest, because bee eaters make holes in sort of the side walls of riverbeds over. Can you see it?
No, it's blue.
But I've also noticed that they can make a nest in the roof of a tunnel in a termite mound, like a warthog burrow. Warthog or porcupine burrows, they'll make their nest, they'll dig a hole in the roof of the burrow. So somewhere there, maybe because of the drainage line, the erosion has created a sheer wall for them to dig into. And interestingly enough, with bee eaters, because they live in holes in the bank, in riverbanks and things, when a parent lights at them an entrance to the nest, obviously the bird then blocks off all the light to the nest. And so nature has given the baby's beaks a slight luminous quality to it. The adults know where to put the food. Activity in Parlour mostly. But not a soul on the open area. Pardon? Yeah. Tex, what you had that moving? Copy, thanks. I was gonna say I got my heli radar on. About as far as the drive takes us. Great invention, the gravity drive. When you harness some of, and that's interesting. Got heron and geese on the damn wall. Sorry, heron, to disturb. And all 6 goslings. freshest elephant I've seen today. Also a plant that had been pulled up its root, eaten and dropped. Lots of leaves in the road, fresh leaves. Hello again, Tom. Seattle Tom. Wanting to know how the area known as Quarantine got its name. Interesting area, shaded on the map. I'm not sure which map you got, Tom. But a long time ago, once upon a time, Djuma Game Reserve, I think, was self-contained, and there was a time when the owners at the time decided to bring in some animals that didn't occur here yet, or they wanted to reintroduce animals, and so they fenced in that area and cleared it, and it became a fenced-in area. And you see, when you translocate animals and you take them from one area to another, you can't just release them. They need to acclimatize, they need to adjust, and you need to have these holding areas that are big enough for them to move around, yet keep them fairly safe from predators and from getting injured by spooking and running and injuring themselves. So that's why it was called Quarantine, because it became a quarantine area for the animals that were reintroduced into the area. Those are days before the fences dropped and became incorporated into Kruger. There was a time when I think there was even cattle farming here, and that open area was used to keep cattle safe. There are old scars on a lot of those marula trees around Quarantine. We'll see that next time. In fact, where the coral tree was today, there's still a piece of wire sticking out of that marula tree because it grew into the tree, or rather the tree grew around the wire. There's scars on those marula trees where the trees themselves were actually used as the fence posts. So the wires for the fencing were attached to the trees. And over the years, of course, the trees have grown, and without being able to, the wire was unable to expand with the tree, so the tree just grew around the wire. Hello, Terry and Secunda. Terry's saying, when there are no animals to see, no stories to tell, I'll tell you about the trees and the fruits and the... Hello, snail. Excuse me, snail. sure. Sometimes I get inside my own head because I'm listening. One thing is that I'm listening to the radio and I'm starting to, and I sort of get into a thought mode because I'm listening to animal places where there is animal movement from reports on the radio, trying to think of the direction they're going and the time it takes to get there and where they might be to find them again. Like now, there were some animals on Cheetah Cut Line where this road joins Cheetah Cut Line, but they were there quite a while ago. So I've been trying to calculate, is it better to come up here and start from scratch to try and find them again, or should we try and get to where I think they might be heading? And well, we'll see. Once we get try them out, try Drakensberg Drive maybe. Come sunshine. Nice when the sun comes out. Terry and Sequinda. Hey, squirrel. So now, should we try there or here? Let's try here. Go Shrike. Hello, Linda in Texas. Is that Dallas? Is that Pepperbird? Linda was asking about diving. I mentioned I used to go diving. I loved the East African coast for diving. Island archipelago, or the Mafia archipelago. And Zanzibar. Hello, Mrs. Kudu. See if we can hear any elephants. Love the noise of all these noisy oxpeckers. Another one. Just noticed another one. Let me go forward a little bit. Oh, there, little one, mum and baby. Got a bird on your head, baby. A very comfortable oxpecker. It's like one of those hats that the ladies wear to the races. Those things that aren't really a hat, they're just a fashion statement. Maybe somebody will model it after an oxpecker one, or create one off. Being silly. Hello, little one. Gonna grow into those ears. can you see and hear, Mrs. Kudu? Kevin wants to know why I never use binoculars. I always use binoculars, Kevin. They're right here in the dashboard, always close by. Still got Donna's question and Linda's question to get to. I just thought since they're not kudu related, I'll get back to them shortly. But this female, I was just trying to put myself in her place, because she was looking at something, and I thought maybe with the oxpeckers alarming the way they've been alarming, maybe she saw something. Now that other female's also looking at something. Can't be anything dangerous, otherwise she wouldn't be walking towards it. Maybe it's other kudu, other members of the group. Well, that posture there, that head up, ears forward, both females now, both adults are looking the same. Let me go forward a little. Oops. Baby got a fright. Oh, there's more. Other kudu, that's what it is. Other kudu. The rest of the group, I guess. I wonder if it's different kudu, because she's an older female. A little bit of interesting behavior there between them. This is the one that they were looking at. Hello, madam. Bye, children. So, Linda was asking about diving, and I used to dive on the east coast of Africa. Well, I used to dive in South Africa too. Haven't dived for a long time. I'd love to dive again one of these days. Elephant track's going the other way. Supposed to be elephant going that way. But Linda wanted to know what my favorite things were diving. I love to dive with well, just anything really. I mean, the underwater world, I could just sit in one spot on a reef or a wall. But mantis shrimps are interesting. I used to love finding mantis shrimps. Big potato bass or groupers. Swimming with big potato bass or groupers. I never managed to, in all my years of diving. I started diving at the age of 14, so I've been diving for many years, decades, and never managed to get to dive with a whale shark or a manta ray. Love diving with sharks because I think they're the most graceful aquatic animals. It was fun being underwater with dolphins, even though they were shy. But some of the little cleaner shrimp that could clean your nails and corals, it's just a whole world under there that I'd love to do an underwater safari one day. Nowadays you can get those masks that you can speak into. I think it was Donna was asking what other trees provide fruit that animals eat. Buffalo thorn, but there are no berries on it. That's buffalo thorn. Whoa! I didn't see quite a big golden orb. After the rain, some of them might have got rained out, so they restart their webs, and whichever way the wind's blowing, that's where their first strand gets sent. So this is why sometimes their webs will cross the road. Using that as a sail. She's paragliding. Buffalo thorn has fruits. This one doesn't. The one that back at camp has fruits dropping. I'll try and find you some buffalo thorn fruits. They're not that filling. Yeah. What's up, bird? The raisin bush. Find your raisin bush. There's the false marula. The false marula has nice little fruits. This is the guari. The guari also has little berries that animals eat. That is a commiphora. The commiphora has berries that can be eaten. No, not really sparkthorn. There are small and large sour plums. There are sausages on the sausage tree that are eaten by some animals. Well, they're not really sausages. They're just shaped like that. Fruits. I'll have to bring a sausage on drive again because there was the one that we had in camp. I want to extract some seeds from it. There's a flower. Little creeper that produces this yellow flower. Hello, yellow butterfly. Pseudemnocarpus. That senna was also flowering. We all know about the marulas because I think that's where it all started, because we've just been through marula fruiting season. And of course that's the most prolific fruit and I suppose the most widely used fruit. There we go. Morning glories for a little while. It's been a little bit dry. This moisture has brought out the morning glory. Let me go back again. There's a lovely little yellow butterfly flitting around that flower. Sorry. Wonder where these elephants have gone to. Kevin? Binoculars? Can't go anywhere without binoculars. Alice, Morning, Alice. In Minnesota. Comparing the size of kudu and bushbuck. Okay, so kudu is about 3 times the size of bushbuck. More. 5 times the size of bushbuck. Kudu stands shoulder height, probably can be about 5 feet, maybe a bit higher. And a bushbuck will be maybe 3 feet, the most, the shoulder. Actually, kudu can probably be about 5.5 or more even. Let's see what figures I can get out of the book for you. Oops. I suppose it's very difficult when you're looking at it on a 2-dimensional screen to get an idea of different sizes and things, because when we zoom in I can fill the frame with the kudu, I can fill the frame with the nyala or bushbuck, and it's hard to put it all into context, I suppose, if you've never seen them. Some fresh branches. Senna, just been broken by an elephant. Still very wet. Where he or she was taking the root. Pulled the whole tree out. This is the base. This is where the root would have started. So. Gone through there and gone that way. There's more senna broken in there, and there's going to be somewhere here. I think it was David was asking a question about female antelope with horns. I've known female kudu to have horns, and I've known of a few female impala with horns. There's one female impala with horns near home on an airstrip, one neighbouring property, and I'm lucky enough the main road comes past that airstrip, so I get to see her. I've taken photographs of her over the years. David, I don't think it's much a case of them having high testosterone levels. I don't think that's it at all. I think it's a throwback from a time gone by when female antelope of the ancestors of these species, when they had horns that became vestigial through through not needing them anymore. And it's like a recessive gene that every now and then there's a throwback and one comes out with horns. Over here, now these elephants. Look at that. Just inside a really, really thick block of bush. Many years ago I knew a female impala with horns down in the southern part of the Sabi Sand. Last year I found a female impala with horns in the Salati Game Reserve, and I've got an interesting picture of a female that I saw up in Tanzania a couple of years ago in Ruaha National Park. And yes, they do and can still reproduce. Only really the antelope that transitioned from open plains into thicker bush became browsers, where the females lost the use or the need rather for horns. Perhaps they became a hindrance. Horns essentially were there as, not necessarily as weapons for females, just as you have with a lot of the open plains antelope, wildebeest, all the gazelles, hartebeests, topi. A lot of the grassland antelope that have retained their horns, because out in the grassland those horns help the females to protect themselves if need be against predators. It becomes a defensive tool. And for those antelope that moved into the thicker bush, the kudu, nyala, bushbuck, their defense is the thick bush that they live in. And so maybe horns became vestigial over time, and it's just every now and then you get these throwbacks. That female that I see and photograph near home, she's had a lamb every year since I've known her. Last 5 years, 6 years or more. It'd be interesting to get her skull. When we were in Thorny Bush 2 years ago, I sadly couldn't put it on air, but the head ranger of one of the lodges in Thorny Bush, John, has a skull of a female impala with horns, which was very interesting to see, because I'd never seen the skull before. I'd only seen the animals. course, it's very hard to then find the skull after they get killed. So it's very unusual and not a very common thing. But also I wonder how many times people actually stop and look at a herd of impala to even notice it. I don't think there are a lot of people that even know that it can be possible. I'll see if I can dig out those photos of a couple of female impala with horns and post them on Facebook. Happy saying that once upon a time there was ostrich on drive. Yes, indeed there was. Once upon a time. I remember seeing the tracks, and then I remember Tara actually found them, I think, a few years ago. But Happy, doesn't mean that there are ostrich here. These were two wandering ostrich that found themselves in an area that was probably a little bit out of their league. Ostriches need vast open areas. They prefer open grasslands to run in, to breed in, to feed in. Their habitat is open plains, not this thick bush. This is death for an ostrich. So I think they were probably youngsters, sub adults, trying to find new areas and found themselves in a pretty bad spot. And I doubt, I really don't know, I'll have to find out from Texan or any of the other guides. I'll find out from them if they've seen ostrich in the interim since then, but I doubt it. They'll become cat food so quickly in a habitat like this. Then there's the other fruiting tree that I didn't think of then while we were talking about it, but come to think of it now, because we're coming down towards the riverbed where we get the big jackalberry trees. And jackalberry is probably the only other big tree, there's one there, only other big tree that has a prolific fruiting period. I think we're far away from jackalberry fruiting time. I think they tend to fruit towards the end of winter, I think. Beautiful big trees, jackalberries. Ebonies. We don't get nyala berries here, but nyala berries also good edible fruit, also quite prolific in terms of being a big tree and producing a lot of fruit. Hello, Mr. Nyala.
Well, while we're with the spiral-horned antelope, just to get back to the difference in sizes of kudu and bushbuck. The kudu's shoulder height over 1.5 meters, as opposed to sort of about 1 meter for the bushbuck. But I suppose it's the length of the animal that makes a difference. Kudu being about 2.5 meters long, head and body length, versus maybe only 1.5 for a bushbuck. And this, the Nyala, the intermediary, all three part of the spiral-horned antelope group known as the Tragolaphids, or the Tragolaphines, the genus Tragolaphus. Other members of the group there's the bongo from Central and Eastern Central Africa, there's the Sitatunga from the marshlands of the Okavango Delta, there's the mountain Nyala of Uganda, and then there are also the eland and the Derby eland. Oh. Oh, and then there's also the lesser kudu of East Africa. 3 bulls. No. I was hoping to hear any sound of elephant every time we stop. Okay, can't see the. Oh, there they go. Waiting for them to follow. Alright, boys, you're hiding now. There's some berries, they're not ripe yet on this buffalo thorn. They're still green. Has rather a large stone inside and a little leathery skin, so the actual fruit part is very, very narrow, and although it can be quite tasty, you need to stuff your mouth with them to be able to get any real taste out of it, and all you can do is sort of suck the fruit off of the big stone and then spit it all out. Sisyphus. Milk berries. Another fruit. The combretums, the bush willows. I guess it's a fruit in a way, but it's more of a pod. But if you look at here, we can get a close-up of this russet bush willow. Pretty little pods. But what's edible in these, because it's not really, although it's a fruit, we call it a winged pod. but the parrots and the squirrels, they get into the pod and they get to the fruit, the actual seed part, and these are still green. But when this starts drying out, they get to this seed pod, and that's the fruit part that they will eat. Now, what you can do with this bush willow is you can actually take this part of it, take the seed out, you make a tea out of the pods. Ooh, can't sit like that. Hurts the knees. Give people nightmares. Bush willow tea. Basically just extracting the tannin from the plant. That's all it is. What I find very interesting, there's been a lot of activity because since there's very much going on around the world because of the weather thing. When weather changes and we get rain. So a number of vehicles have been over onto Djuma because now that it's moved, and well, it's, I suppose, something to show the guests because there was much else happening. There have been some elephants seen, text and saw some elephants. Yeah, I've had that Senna that was pulled up by now. It's fairly fresh. The elephant up there somewhere. They are quite deep in. They're obviously not feeding on stuff that's making a noise. So we're just trying to see what else is there is in other places, and we'll go back and do another loop and go and have a look for them again. But nobody has mentioned leopard tracks, so there has been virtually no movement of leopard, which is strange. None of the boys at Karula, not even on other properties, of other leopards. This morning at any rate. Hippo came down from maybe Gully. Hippo tracks heading towards Pundam. 1 minute looks like it's going to be lovely and sunny, and the next minute looks like we're about to have rain. It's changing constantly this morning. That thing floating there. Monitor lizard. Coming out of the water on the other side, pretending to be, that thing that's pretending to be a crocodile. Here's a water monitor. Also known as the Nile monitor. And the heron. Okay. too high. Britain Susie in Hawaii. To MJ. Britain Susie are often. What's I said is Susie. We don't have the room for it. Pell's fishing out most on permanent rivers. Really like fish eagle in the dam. Although I suppose they might be there. Fishing out north of the tip. I don't think there have been Pell's fishing on the Sabi River. I'm not too sure of that. Fishing out on the Sabi River, which is south of us. In fact, the Sabi River is closer to us, but I don't think there's Pell's on the Sabi River. And then of course, Zambia, and I saw my first Pell's in the Okavango Delta. They're a remarkable owl, most beautiful owl, a lovely russet brown colour. Where's the raptor book? Show you the Pell's fishing owl, for those of you who are not familiar with what we're talking about. It is a very special or specialized owl, much like the fish eagle or your bald eagle or the sea eagles, the white-tailed sea eagles that you find around the world. It has adapted, and it is now, and actually it's a fishing owl, and it only really lives on certain waters. Marsh owl, rufous fishing owl, which is from West Africa. The vermiculated, also West Africa. There's the Pell's fishing owl. An actual photograph on this side, and these are just drawings by Anthony Bannister. Very large owl. At least a 1.5 meter wingspan. Very dark, haunting eyes. Another tree I wasn't thinking of before about fruits, because sometimes I have to see them to remember. The Balanites is another fruiting tree that animals feed on, almost exclusively fed on by civets at times. In fact, we a couple of big Balanites, big. They're known as torchwood as well. Well, Balanites is the scientific name, the botanical. Elephant tracks everywhere. You think I could find any of them? These are all from yesterday. If I went to Twin Dams, I might find something there. Tammy, morning Tammy. How many village weavers? Tammy said she saw some nests at the dam. Have all the chicks fledged by now? How many chicks do they have? Yeah, see here, fresh early down. So this is all the same from those tracks. All going the other way. Going south. Just a little bit too late to find it. How many chicks do they have? I'm not even sure. I think 2. There's a bushbuck. Little female bushbuck. We don't get to see bushbuck very often. Tiny little thing, smaller than Nyala. You see, maybe we can see her better from this angle if we're lucky. No, not really. No. I'm thinking that maybe, just maybe, perhaps we need to go up towards Elephant Skull. And Treehouse Dam, that might be an option, an early option. Because this is fairly fresh, these elephant tracks, because I think someone drove here this morning and these tracks are on top of it. Cutting through here, maybe somewhere from Chelip and going through to Elephant Skull to Treehouse Dam. Maybe that's where they went. Let's try that. I'm guessing that most of the weavers have fled by now. We've got that one, we've got a red-headed weaver's nest in camp that he built with the vehicles parked there right next to where Wendy parks. In fact, next to the antenna, where Wendy's antenna almost touches the roof of the carport. And they still got chicks, but they are different. Those are red-headed weavers. So the village weavers, I'm guessing, what we need to do is go past Treehouse Dam and have a closer look at those nests, see if we can hear any youngsters or see what we can see. But I'm guessing that by now they would have all finished. Sarah wants to know where my elephant tracker is. Here we go, crossing here, some tracks crossing through here. Where's my personal elephant tracker? He's still sleeping in the all night. Sausage dog. An incessant sausage dog. Oh, pachyderms. Elizabeth in Minnesota. Just no can answer this question without being biased or without coming across being biased or prejudiced or I'll have to answer that one. Elizabeth was asking, do the people of Africa understand, acknowledge and what was the words used there, Andrew? Appreciate the wildlife of Africa. I'd say generally as a whole, unfortunately not. I think there are some old tribal groups that still value it and still treasure it and still respect and revere nature and all that's in it, but the modern Africa that exists now, with hunger and unemployment and tribal values out the window and the status quo of the planet, especially Africa, definitely not. It's just something to be harvested and money to be made off of it. It's why we have the poaching problem that we do have. It's why elephants are being killed at the rate of over 100 a day in Africa. Thousands of elephants a year. They're not going to be around forever. That's why the rhino is almost on the brink of extinction, because they're getting killed. That's why gorillas and chimpanzees, the numbers of other primates, have been reduced by over 90% in the last couple of decades. For bush meat, because they just considered everything is just meat, and trees are there to be cut down for firewood, space to be made for subsistence farming. So in general, sadly not, but of course that is Africa, and there are always exceptions to the rule, and there are lots of people in Africa who do respect and admire and understand what nature is all about. There's a baby elephant. Oh, sorry, Mama. I didn't see you. Oh, she came at us from the back there, because I was chatting away and Mama and her baby just behind us. I'm sorry, girl. She stopped. I think she just got upset with me because I just drove straight past her, and because I saw this little one and my brain was sort of trying to work out, is that buffalo or is that elephant? Finally caught up with this bird, but they're quite shy. Let's see, we might get them on Weaver's Nest. There's another one here. Hello, little one. Little girl wandering around on her own, probably getting a little bit concerned because I think Mom has gone down into the drainage line on the other side of us. I'm going to turn around, go up onto the... Just want to go up onto... Well, I don't want to be in between her and the rest of her family. Just want to go up onto Weaver's Nest Road, have a look, because we might see some there. Looks like they might be making their way up towards Treehouse Dam. Oh, there's one there too. Quite spread out. So I guess some of them are heading up towards the dam. There was just a bit, about a second before I saw that first little elephant. There was actually a fragment of elephant bone in the road. And I was thinking that could only have gotten there from another elephant. Because they've cut through from where we found their tracks on Yala Road, coming through the riverbed. They cut through the bush to here. And that big female, about where I saw that fragment of bone, it looks like it's a piece of vertebra. And that's a road called Elephant Carcass, or Elephant Skull, Elephant Carcass, because there was an elephant that died there many, many, many years ago. And that must be one of the pieces of bone still left. Hello, little one with your scraggly ear. Hello, baby. Trunk up. That's her baby. She's about 10 or 12 maybe. Hello. Good morning. Little boy. I'm wondering if he's not lagging behind and his family has already gone through to the dam. We're going to do that quickly. We're just going to have a look. and come back. Maybe some of those others will be out of the bush, out of that thicket that they're in. See if there are any more. Maybe some that have reached Treehouse Dam already. I don't think so though. I think that's most of the herd. The bulk of the herd is further back. See? Oh, maybe I was wrong and maybe I was right at the same time. There's a big girl heading down towards the dam. Big family here. I think that little boy is tagging along with this family group. And maybe we can get to the dam and see them coming to drink. All in single file. Wow, yes, this is going to be great. It's been very unusual to have a little boy in front of mom and family. Most likely only ever going to be at the back. Single file. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is more of an adult bull who's not part of the herd, so he can go in front and do what he wants. Hello girls. We want to come and get into a position here where we're going to be able to sit quietly and watch them. Buffalo too. Maybe we need to be on the other side of them if we can get there quickly. We have to turn around to do that. Oops. Maybe we just have to stop here now because I think I'm troubling them. And all this moving about. Trying to get just the top bit of water from the surface. Splashing, he'll splash a little bit to like that to clear away some of the maybe muck on the surface and sipping from as close to the surface as he can. Buffalo decided not such a good idea. I remember being on the dam wall once with a herd of elephant like this walking past us. You can see how narrow it is and how, I think Tara was on camera with me that day. They literally had to brush past the vehicle. They're going to go and drink on the other side. And these buffalo are going to have to give way. No. So just wonder what this old girl's doing. She's determined to drink here at the damn wall. The bulls come around the other side. It'll be interesting. A little bit of interaction between the bull and this family group. He's not a very big bull, but he is obviously taller than everybody else. He's trying to greet the cow, but she's she doesn't want she sort of, the way she moved her head. Did you see them? Now she's greeting him back, putting her trunk almost in his mouth. Maybe they're related. But she was sort of playing hard to get. I can't remember who asked the question, but the question was asked whether they're born with tusks. Well, they're born, but they're not visible tusks, no. They're milk set of teeth. They're tushes, tiny little incisors. You don't really see them as babies, but they do have them. And then they lose them after the first year and get their adult teeth coming out. While they might go through 6 sets of molars, they only go through once. Well, their incisors, their tusks, are not replaceable when they get their adult tusks from about the age of 2. I think it was Tammy was asking if they lie down to sleep at night. Thank you. No, they don't. They rest pretty much any time. Unnecessarily at night. At night, if anything, they need to be vigilant. There's a little one. Oh, that's half trunk. I only just noticed that little one's got its trunk missing, top of its trunk. I don't know if it's the same one we used to see in the old days. It would be interesting at the composition of this herd. But we used to see a young female with a tip of her trunk missing. I should have looked a bit closer, because then we would have been able to see how she was drinking. I wonder if this matriarch, of course, this one standing on the damn wall, I wonder if she's the mother of that little boy who was lagging behind and she's just waiting for him. There was that one that we had, we called it fupi, which in Swahili means short. Missing a good few inches from the tip of her trunk. That other matriarch was heading west and she's now just turned around and coming back the other way. Chris wants to know if there's a functionality behind the more angular forehead of the females versus the more rounded forehead of the males. I think it's just finer features, Chris, much like our... I don't think that there's any particular function to it, to be honest. The caravan that lands at Arethusa. Flying over. I think it's just the feminine features that make them, maybe much like us. There are particular things that make make feminine features different to males. Of course, I'm open to suggestions and any info possible. Not a single bird flying around those weaver nests, so my guess is that the weavers are finished completely. No more. There isn't any more breeding, or those nests are all gone brown and dry and won't be used again. I can't remember if I answered Sharon's question. Sharon, Austria. I can't remember. Might have been distracted by elephants. There's a dung. Not many dung beetles around anymore, but there's a dung beetle rolling a ball. She's probably put an egg in it and she's taking it to bury now. There's that little one. Another little Ellie. Slowly coming to catch up with the herd. I want to go and see if we can find that other herd. Pardon? It is. I haven't heard anything on the radio. Time to say goodbye. Really? Which? Oh, okay. I thought we still had an hour or two. We are at the end of our party for this morning. Nice to catch the Ellies at the end, and we can come and look for them later. I think if they're heading south, they're going to cross over the boundary pretty soon. We're not far from the boundary here. And well, this afternoon for us, but for some of you to be tomorrow. We'll see you on your tomorrow. We'll see you in our afternoon, a little bit later. Thank you for joining us. My name is Mark. Brian has been on camera this morning, and Andrew in final control. Guest appearances by the sun.
everybody. Love you lots.